thou wilt shall be the whole of the law.
Love is the law. Love of your will.
I want to welcome you all here tonight. My name is Steele, and I am a practitioner of Yoga Nidra, among other ways of going into trance and accessing Gnosis. So tonight I'm going to give you a little overview of this practice that is referred to as Yoga Nidra, also called the doorway to bliss. So the first thing I want to do is say my disclaimer. These are my views and my views only of how the practice of Yoga Nidra pertains to accessing the state of Gnosis. So first of all, what exactly is Gnosis? According to various sources, it can be interpreted as sort of a mystical enlightenment. Gnosis is a Greek noun, feminine, which means knowledge, and in the Hellenistic era, it became associated with the mystery cults. Solar phallic sex cults, us, right? So Gnosis is something that is a part of what we work to experience here at the Blazing Star. It is often used to refer to personal knowledge as compared to intellectual knowledge. Our insight, it's a type of higher intelligence, intuitive ability, analogous with talent or aptitude. So Crowley's will, one of his many wills, was to explain the subject of yoga in clear, concise language without resorting to jargon or the enunciation of fantastic hypotheses, in order that this great science may be thoroughly understood as one of universal importance. And those of you who are familiar with Crowley's 8 lectures on yoga, his first lecture mentioned numerous times, yoga means union. So my will or purpose is to facilitate magical practitioners, those embarking in self-analysis and other psychonaut types, to experience union with this magical state of Gnosis. I'm kind of starting to understand what this knowledge and conversation with the holy guardian angel is. To me, I think it's Gnosis. That's what I think it is. So hopefully I will help you figure out what your version of this is. So yoga is a practice that helps us discover and focus on our will or our purpose by giving us tools to stabilize the mind. Stabilizing the mind means when you try and get quiet, that little monkey mind is chattering all the time and telling you you're no good, or you're thinking about this other thing or the grocery list or whatever. But to quiet the mind, giving us tools to stabilize our mind, that's the first thing you have to do before you can actually meditate. Because if you've got all this stuff going on that needs to be resolved, you can't go there, you can't achieve Gnosis, in my experience. So once you stabilize your mind, you can really start getting into analytical meditation, which is picking a topic that you're attracted to, you're drawn to, desire, love, that attraction thing, without all the little stuff popping up around the edges. And that is the act of union, or yoga. So direct experiencing of God is yoga with the cosmic consciousness, a uniting of the object and the subject, the seer and the seen. So in yoga, and I'm thinking also in magic, but I just speak for myself, God is considered a development of the human brain, not something external to ourselves. So in ceremonial magic, that provides the discipline to focus our attention on the elements of the ritual, to use our imagination to sustain certain mental images or states that contribute to the energetic field or the egregore of the group. So when we do ceremonial magic, at least for me, the people, the mass team, their job is to focus on their part, to become one with their part of the mass, from what I understand. So that is the concentration part of yoga. And it develops our discipline to be able to focus on things. So yoga provides the essential tools of concentration and meditation for magical operations. So it just develops that ability to focus on something and get lost in it. So, and that's, again, universal intelligence, superconsciousness, my estimation of what knowledge and conversation with your holy guardian angel is all about. So, a little quote from the first lecture, the 8 lectures on yoga from Crowley, statement number 19. It is therefore incumbent upon us, if we wish to make the universal and final yoga with the absolute, to master every element of our being, to protect it against all civil and external war, and to intensify every faculty to the utmost, to train ourselves in knowledge and power to the utmost, so that at the proper moment we may be in perfect condition to fling ourselves up into the furnace of ecstasy, which flames from the abyss of annihilation. So there's that attraction, that yoga, that yoking. And when we come together, we just annihilate ourselves in bliss and become something that's the sum of the greater, that's the greater of its sum, that's greater than its parts. So, quiet the mind and the soul will speak. So, Yoga Nidra is about turning down the volume so that we can hear our intuitive self where our answers lie. So, Yoga Nidra is a process of sensory withdrawal, which we can intentionally travel from the conscious mind through the subconscious and emerge into the conscious state. So the term Yoga Nidra comes from 2 Sanskrit words. One is yoga, which means union or one-pointed awareness, and the other one means sleep. So yoga means union with sleep. And the union of the conscious mind with the subconscious dreaming state, and also union with the unconscious deep sleep state. So during Yoga Nidra, the practitioner appears to be asleep, but consciousness is functioning at a deeper level of awareness, independent of external senses. This means that even when you sleep, your self is awake and aware. For this reason, Yoga Nidra is referred to by many names, including transcendental sleep and sleep with inner awareness. So briefly, I was introduced to Yoga Nidra in this weird way. I had just broken up with a, narcissistic borderline type. I don't know if anybody knows what those are. But it's like you just reach the point where, I was telling you about it earlier, like you could kill somebody, but you can't. So how do you unravel yourself from this like mindfuck, that you get engaged in with these people? So I got introduced to alchemy, and in alchemy it was mentioned that yoga can help us change our vibratory state, like chill out. I'm like, oh, I need that. I'm going to go do some yoga. So I found this yoga teacher that my daughter told me about, and she was a shamanic practitioner, and at the end of her class, without telling people what it was, she did Yoga Nidra for 30 minutes. No charge, no advertising. Just at the end of the practice, she's like, want to do Yoga Nidra? Yoga candy? Okay. And so I started to get introduced to trance state without even knowing it was trance state. I just knew it was Yoga Nidra. And at the same time, she did shamanic soul retrieval and power animal retrieval for me. And she's like, you're supposed to be a shamanic practitioner. I'm like, oh, great. So it just gave me this reason to get outside of myself and learn through my own pain and suffering, the wounded healer, that this practice of Yoga Nidra is so simple, yet if you do it regularly, you can really start to release these things that are driving you crazy. And that's how I pulled myself out of the misery of being involved with this like really sick, psychotic relationship. So that's how I got introduced to Yoga Nidra, just randomly. And she didn't explain to us what it was. She just did it every yoga practice. So Yoga Nidra was compiled by this guy named Satyananda Saraswati. And he went to, like in India, you hit like 11, 12, 13 years old at that time. It was okay for you as a kid to say, hey, mom and dad, I'm going to go off to seek enlightenment. So this guy headed out, and he found his guru, Shivananda Saraswati, in Rishikesh, India, which was a center for this type of study. And at that time, he was introduced to many esoteric tantric scriptures where he discovered many interesting, important, yet little-known methods of accessing deeper states of consciousness. So after much research and practice in the 1960s, which I don't know if you remember, was like the dawning of the age of Aquarius. You got all these Europeans and Americans going to India to learn these esoteric practices. And so this was where he was at when he developed this. His intention was to clean up, get the Sanskrit out of it and the crazy 5-day-long tantric rituals, and just make it accessible to regular people. So he constructed a system of relaxation that we now know as Yoga Nidra. So this system incorporates the essentials of the esoteric practices with, like I said, without needing to learn Sanskrit or complicated tantric rituals. So Satyananda defined Yoga Nidra as a state of mind between wakefulness and sleep. That little right before you go to sleep and you're just all cozy and you feel really good and then you're gone. Yoga Nidra holds that state and expands it through mental exercises. So the way his signature thing is the tantric practice of placing the mind, which is called nyasa, and that's about like namaste, where the God in me, the divine in me, sees the divine in you. So nyasa is like anything you look at, it's yoga. You merge with it. And so that was his signature technique that makes the Yoga Nidra that we do today so special. So the characteristic feature of Satyananda's Yoga Nidra is the systematic rotation of consciousness, which coincides, coincidentally, with the motor homunculus, or the little human. So there's this band in our cerebral cortex where all of the nerve sensors for our senses lie. So in Yoga Nidra, he does a rotation of consciousness, which goes through this band systematically. So it's like lighting up your brain, stimulating it without physically doing anything. So by following the specific sequence and sending our minds to various body parts, it induces the flow of energy within the neural circuitry of the motor homunculus. So the thing that chills you out is that when you do this, the flow of energy to these places is accompanied by an experience of relaxation. So you start to chill out just by imagining right hand thumb, second finger, third finger, fourth finger, fifth finger. You do that and you take your mind off of other things, and it just instills this feeling of relaxation, which is bliss. So as we disassociate from our conscious mind and from our sensory and motor channels, we start to access another, like our sixth sense. And we'll get into that as I continue to discuss this. So Yoga Nidra is Swami Satyananda's interpretation of the tantric system of placing the mind, or nyasa. And I don't want to turn this into a discussion on tantric techniques or whatnot. I just want to share enough to help you understand what Yoga Nidra is about. So, the hypnagogic state, right? In Yoga Nidra, the consciousness is in a state between waking and sleep, but it is subject to neither. Modern psychology refers to this as a hypnagogic state, where the mind is exceptionally receptive and able to receive insights and intuitions from the deeper levels of the mind. So Joseph Campbell, you guys know who Joseph Campbell is, the mythologist dude? So again, here's a quote. In deep, dreamless sleep, consciousness is still there, but covered by darkness. But suppose you could find that consciousness. Suppose you could go into deep sleep awake. This is Joseph Campbell. That's what Yoga Nidra does. That's why I love Yoga Nidra. So Yoga Nidra is the ability to keep the mind awake, aware, and in single point focus while inducing the body to sleep. How does this happen? By withdrawing the 5 physical senses, turning off the stimuli to relax and quiet the mind. So when the physical senses are withdrawn and relaxation becomes complete, we can receive information from our 6th sense, our intuitive knowing, and we can enter into the state of gnosis. This is the secret of Yoga Nidra, not really a secret. So this state is the fountain of artistic and poetic inspiration. It's also the source of the most creative scientific discoveries. For example, Nobel laureate Niels Bohr saw the planetary structure in atoms. Einstein accelerated his awareness to the speed of light in his famous thought experiments, which led to the theory of relativity. So it's this introspective state where, and this is what I've learned that analytical meditation is you pick something that interests you and you just think about it. And it's like brainstorming. All the ideas that are associated with that thing start to come up around the edges of your consciousness when you can consciously ask the question and then quiet your mind and wait for the answers to come up. So this is the state of mind that we induce in Yoga Nidra. And after you do Yoga Nidra a while, you don't need to do Yoga Nidra anymore. You've already trained your brain to go into that space. So it's also referred to as the opening of the third eye or the activation of the pineal gland. So there's lots of opinions on how this works and how our pineal glands and our ductless glands correspond with the chakras and all of that stuff. But what makes sense to me is that we have this transmitter receiver called the pineal gland, that when we turn off the stimulation of our five senses, we start to receive information through the pineal gland, which is like a meta organ. It takes in all of your five sensory perception portals and incorporates that into just kind of a greater awareness. So the pineal gland and tapping, when we go into our withdrawal of senses, the conscious mind goes beyond our ego personality with its tensions and complexes. We go beyond that. And when we are no longer emotionally identified with the mind and body, our entire being begins to emerge and unites with the universal mind, the superconsciousness. That is like our intuition. So depending on what field you're studying in, the words are different to explain the same state. So it's very difficult to use specific words for these states because wherever you go, they use a little bit different terms. So I'm just trying to describe the state without putting a label on it. So in ancient Vedic literary works, so we got Joseph Campbell, we got Crowley, and now we got the ancient Vedic guys saying, therefore, realize with a still mind your own true nature, which is composed of the whole universe in all its diversity. Realize with a still mind the state between sleep and wakefulness. This is the real self. It's that hypnagogic state that you kind of pass through, but man, if you could just stay there, and that's what Yoga Nidra is about. So the modern practice of Yoga Nidra was derived from the ancient tantras, as I mentioned, and is a simplified version of Raja Yoga. Raja Yoga is the yoga that Crowley is referring to in his 8 lectures, yoga, in case you guys didn't know. So with this simple yet powerful technique, we can systematically induce complete physical, emotional, and mental relaxation. So what is relaxation anyway? Smoking, having a drink, distracting ourselves with TV, reading the newspaper. Is that relaxation? Or are we diverting our senses? So it's really important to understand what relaxation is. It's like the disengagement from stimuli. Because when you're engaged with stimulation, it makes you tense. Because you got to react. You're reacting. So reacting is like attention. So when you learn to let go of the stimuli, even though you hear the noise next door, I just realized it's going on. But if we're focusing on something, you don't pay attention to external distractions. So are we truly relaxing or merely indulging in sensory diversion? So Yoga Nidra is described as deep relaxation with inner awareness, a state reached by turning inward away from external experiences. We do this to achieve the state of gnosis. Gnosis, again, is accessing your intuition. In my humble opinion, you all may have another way of looking at it, but that's what it means to me. So when we do this, having separate ourselves from external awareness but not falling into sleep, this frame of mind becomes very, very powerful. It's our magical state. That's where we do our magical work, from this particular frame of mind. We can develop our memory, we can increase our knowledge and creativity, self-analysis, get into self-analysis, examine a health problem, all from this kind of state. Like when I get into that state, that's kind of how I feel. And from this state, I can just figure out anything. It's very, very interesting. So in this threshold state between sleep and wakefulness, contact or union with the subconscious and the unconscious dimensions occurs spontaneously, and we begin to get glimpses of the superconsciousness or our bliss state. So, you guys have any thoughts on superconsciousness, unconsciousness? Do you have any thoughts on what that is to you? No? No thoughts? You all agree with what I say? So it's like your conscious mind is interacting through our 5 sense organs, and then you kind of start withdrawing from that and you get into the subconscious, which seems to be a little place between the unconscious mind and the conscious mind. And then when you're in the subconscious state, there's like this little light that can come on, like the gnosis, and you can follow that into like the akasha, or there's so many metaphors and words for this state I'm trying to explain, but that's the words I'm trying to use to explain this state. That the picture's worth 1,000 words. To me, that's the state that we achieve. So, deep sleep may not be sleep at all, but a portal to the subconscious. Complete relaxation. Does that cat look relaxed? Doesn't seem to be bothered that the basket it's sitting in is like 5 sizes too small. It's like once you learn how to chill out, you can do it anywhere, anytime. So people stroke their chin, tap their feet, bite their nails, pace about restlessly, chain smoke. These are behaviors that are in response to inner tensions. So even when we sleep, thoughts and worries revolve around in our heads, and we wake up feeling exhausted. So in order to relax completely all the tensions of the body and emotions and the mind, we have to just systematically release them. They don't just go away when you go to sleep or flop down on the couch. So how do we go about doing this? Training the mind. So Yoga Nidra means sleep with a trace of awareness, and in the twilight state of the mind between wakefulness and dreaming, there's just an endless possibilities. So it's like this tiny little slice of our everyday life, but in Yoga Nidra, you go in there and you open it up and it becomes a little workshop, a little mental workshop. So when we practice Yoga Nidra, we train ourselves to willfully extend the state and then explore and ultimately direct the deeper regions of our minds, the seat of our intuition and our creativity. By concentration and meditation, so concentration is like picking something and focusing on it. And then at a certain point, if you don't have a lot of distractions coming up and you really like what you're focusing on, you merge with it. And that's meditation. Yoga means union. So meditation is union with, you're the seer and the seen. When you meditate on something, you become it. You kind of like drop into it. So in this state of concentration or meditation on an object, we enter into a world of infinite possibilities. Answers to our questions arise when our mind is relaxed and silent. At this particular moment, right here, right now, our intellectual, conscious mind is probably noisily chattering away. You're paying attention to me, but maybe you drifted off onto something that happened while you're on your way here. Our mind can really distract us. But when we learn to quiet our minds by relaxing completely, meaning turning off the thoughts, releasing the emotions that are attached to the thoughts, that gives us access to the superconscious state, or gnosis. But first, we must stabilize and quiet our minds by releasing the accumulated tensions. The 3 types of tension. So you've got the muscular ones that are related to the body itself. And you've got the emotional tensions that stem from polarized reactions, attraction, aversion. Ooh, I like that. Ooh, I hate that. These emotions get attached to things that have no intention, no purpose. They're just things. But we react to them with pleasure or displeasure, which makes us not in control of ourselves. When we can control how we react to things emotionally, that's magic, is learning how to use your emotions as tools. But we first experience our emotions when we get triggered by something. It's like, I just lost my temper. Wow, what if I could take the energy of losing my temper and use it like a laser beam, boop, and then turn it off when I'm done. So first we learn that we have these emotional tensions and how they make us feel, and ultimately we learn how to use them to our advantage. So Yoga Nidra helps you release the triggers, the emotional triggers that come from reacting with our environment. So most of us are not emotionally aware unless we've been doing self-analysis, because we're tired of not being emotionally aware. And we walk around in a blur of anxiety, shame, fear, and resentment. I mean, have you ever thought about how you're feeling like right now or at any particular time? A lot of people don't. And when I talk to them and I find out they're like in a constant state of rage because they feel helpless, and then it's kind of like, why do you feel that way to begin with? And you're probably not supposed to be feeling bad all the time. So that's kind of, it's good to become emotionally aware, and Yoga Nidra helps you do that. And then the mental tensions result from uncontrolled, excessive mental activity, like ruminating over thoughts such as, God, I should have said that, or I should have turned left instead of right, or, you start rethinking all the things you can't change. You're thinking about them, and then an emotion gets attached to it, and the next thing you know, you're like uptight, your blood pressure's going up, and ultimately that could end up with as a neuroses, phobias. Also, if something really intense happens, I don't want to say good or bad, but when something really intense happens to you, it lodges in your consciousness, so that in the future, when a similar situation comes up, you have a similar emotional reaction. So controlling your thoughts is also really important, and you can't just release your mental tensions by going to sleep. You have to learn to not let your mind run off in different directions. So we must undo the yoga or union between these negative experiences, sensitizing experiences that make you relive like the whole breakup with the girlfriend or whatever, That's a yoga in itself. Like, that's you united with the situation that's created this emotional reaction. So the first step towards union with our mystical insight or gnosis is to relax and release these tensions. So how does this happen? So first we lay very comfortably in what is called the corpse position, where our body's not touching other parts of our body. Our palms are up because that's the very sensitive part of our body. And you close your eyes, and it's better if you put an eye pillow on. That way you reduce physical stimulation to a minimum. Then we heighten the awareness of the body by focusing on our breath and the meeting points of the body on the floor. That's all. So you give your mind something to focus on that's not drama, and this amazing sense of relaxation starts to overcome you. And then we rotate the consciousness through the body by the voice, me talking, saying, right hand, thumb, finger, second finger, third finger, fourth finger, and you go through the body, which lights up the band in your motor cortex. This induces mental relaxation by willfully directing the thoughts rather than letting them run wild and evoke emotional responses. This is how Yoga Nidra relaxes the mind by relaxing the body. This is the symbol of Yoga Nidra. So you got this guy Vishnu laying on the snakes, which represent our conscious mind, but they're all chilled out, they're all focusing in. Lakshmi, the goddess of abundance, is serving him at his feet. These are all symbols and metaphor for how we need to be in relationship to our environment to achieve the state of Yoga Nidra. You got Brahma or Atman, your unconscious self, floating out of your navel. So when you look at this picture, it represents Yoga Nidra. So that's the Yoga Nidra guy. So each one of those things he has in his hand, the conch shell represents sound, the sound of Om, the universal sound that all the elements came out of. He's got the lotus flower, which represents purity, divest of the circumstances that you're in. He's got a little chakra wheel around his finger, which is, the universe and time. And then he's got that big mace, which is a symbol of power and intelligence. And he's floating on an ocean of milk. And when you get into the state of Yoga Nidra, you kind of feel like you're floating. So we have the three states of consciousness: the awake or conscious state, the dreaming sleep, which is a subconscious state, and deep sleep, or your unconscious. So in the wakeful state of awareness, the conscious mind is actively engaged with external environment through the sensory channels of experience. During the dreaming state, when the subconscious mind becomes predominant, suppressed desires, fears, and inhibitions and deep-seated impressions are actively expressed. And in the deep sleep state, the unconscious mind, the source of our instincts, drives, and other things that are like latent in us, begin to manifest. So in contrast to the dream state, all mental activities and fluctuations disappear during deep sleep. In this state, past impressions and latent desires are deactivated, and the mind and body are motionless, relaxed, peaceful. So in yogic and tantric scriptures, the deep sleep conscious state is referred to as the dark night of the soul, also as the womb of creation. So any thoughts on dark night of the soul? This is
Rage against the light.
Rage against the light. Why not? We walk around in the light all day long, but we can withdraw our senses to where it's just dark and still.
It's a great poem by St. John of the Cross. It's a really great poem.
Dark night of the
It's the
soul.
revelation of the beloved to the one who is seeking the beloved while his house is at rest.
Yeah.
Because he's stirred, he's found himself awake, and he's dealing with the turmoil of his understanding, not quite reaching the knowledge of his beloved, and the beloved comes to him, and it's for only him, and it's just the most, it's absolutely beautiful. You'd hardly believe that it was like a Spanish Catholic mystic who wrote it, but it's like absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, but the mysticism, to get into that state of just bearing witness to that psychic pain,
right,
and relaxing into it, and then the light comes on.
the bliss, yeah,
The bliss. So
the bliss
doorway
of
to
oneness in that sense, yeah.
you got
with
it.
Christ.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Totally. Yeah. So the hypnagogic state normally lasts 3 to 5 minutes, and it's that threshold from sense into sense and deep consciousness, and then sleep consciousness. So what we do in Yoga Nidra is learn to extend this twilight state. And when we do, like you just said, that is the doorway to bliss. So Yoga Nidra and hypnosis. So there's lots of talk, and again, there's all these words that people use to describe states. So what I've learned is that all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. You cannot be hypnotized unless you allow yourself to. You have to surrender and relax and let yourself go into this state. So if someone's going to hypnotize you, you have to have rapport with that person. Otherwise, you're not going to surrender to them guiding you in this very open and sensitive state. So hypnosis to me is the hypnagogic state. I'm going to hypnotize you. That just means I'm going to facilitate you entering into this twilight state between waking and dreaming. And as soon as you don't want to be there, you can snap right out of it. And we're in that state off and on all day long. Highway hypnosis, reading a book, you get lost into something and you don't know where the time goes. That's the hypnagogic state, and that's what we're playing around with in Yoga Nidra. So Raja Yoga provides a simple, concise method to access unite with, do yoga with the state of gnosis. The state of mind achieved in Yoga Nidra passes through the hypnagogic state. So hypnosis, the hypnotic state, is this state. And then what you do with it is entirely up to you. As magicians, we want to use that place to create, to make the universe conform to our will by using our psychological faculties. Go ahead.
So would you consider lucid dreaming part of Yoga Nidra? Is that exactly what we're talking about? Or
Yeah,
is it
yeah. I'm actually going to speak to that in
Okay.
just a minute. Yeah, lucid dreaming, astral travel, in my experience, and I've been working on this for like 5 years, they're all in that subconscious mind area. I'm not going to read everything that's up there, but absolutely, I have discovered, I've experimented a lot with lucid dreaming, and Yoga Nidra helps me know the state that I'm in, where my body is kind of like sleep breathing, but my mind is completely focused, and I've trained myself to, when I'm asleep, notice when I'm asleep, yet I'm awake, and then I'm like, oh goody, I can mess around here. So yeah, lucid dreaming is definitely springs out of that hypnagogic state. So Yoga Nidra and sensory withdrawal. Does anybody know the name of that hand gesture? It's called the Yoni Mudra. Anybody know what Yoni means?
Yes.
Womb. It means womb. Okay, so Yoga Nidra is about withdrawing your senses so that you can respond to your sixth or inner sense. And so they have specific yogic exercises to do that, or we can do it through the practice of Yoga Nidra. So Yoga Nidra is considered a form of Raja Yoga, which is a part of the Yoga Sutras written a couple centuries before Christ. And that's the guy Patanjali, and he compiled Yoga Nidra, he compiled the sutras from texts that were more, not texts, but practices that were more ancient than 3,000 years ago. So he divided the path of Raja Yoga into 8 stages or limbs, starting with the basic rules of attitude and behavior that are conducive to mental peace, and they end with self-realization, where the contents and activities of a mind are completely transcended. So I don't really want to get into what the 8 limbs of Raja Yoga, but suffice to say, it's the first 4 are like physical preparation, so your body and your behavior doesn't mind fuck you, is basically what it is. So you can just quiet your mind by abstaining from certain behaviors, doing other behaviors that help you get along with people, taking care of your body enough to where it doesn't disturb you when you try and meditate, and then focus on your breath. And then after that, you get into sensory withdrawal, which is what Yoga Nidra is about, which leads you to a better ability to concentrate, a better ability to meditate, which is unite with the thing you're concentrating on, which ultimately leads into the 8th state of samadhi, or accessing the superconsciousness. So, experiences that happen in Yoga Nidra: feeling out of the body, lucid dreaming, extrasensory perception, and accessing higher states of consciousness. So out-of-body experiences happen when our conscious mind is traversing the subconscious mind. In the subconscious realm, the mind is temporarily disassociated from the idea of the body. So you're just kind of like, that's the astral plane in my estimation. You're no longer attached to this physical body, and it's kind of disorienting at first. And like anything, it takes practice to learn what to do with that state. So, in the state of Yoga Nidra, or just when you get there in that state, you can feel like you're flying. You can travel to other worlds. You can go back and forward in time. Whatever you can imagine, you can achieve in that state of Yoga Nidra as far as out-of-body experiences are concerned. Lucid dreaming is something that, as we get accustomed to using our psychic senses, we can enlist our active imagination to explore ideas and visualize our body operating in perfect harmony, whatever we want. You know, lucid dreaming is just a place to do like a little mental workshop once you learn the skills. But lucid dreaming is also when you're asleep at night and you realize you're asleep, but you're asleep, but you're awake. And then if you have the mental discipline, you can start directing what you're doing in that state that you didn't work towards. You just kind of realize you were in it. And extrasensory perception is the development of the range of experiences that we have when we tune into our sixth sense, that pineal gland, that transmitter receiver that is right, our third eye in the center of our head. So extrasensory perceptions all correspond, each sense corresponds to a physical sense, and they're called the clairs: clairvoyance, clear seeing, clairsentience, clear feeling. Now they're coming up with the sixth one, which is called claircognizance, meaning you just know. So we have a psychic sense that corresponds with each of our physical senses. And in extrasensory perception, we are using the input from our pineal gland, or our sixth sense, to sense what's going on around us. And these are the cities. If y'all know much about yoga, there's a point where you start learning how your mind works, and you start being able to read what's in an envelope without seeing it. You start to be able to sense what's going on with somebody's energy pattern. You start to be able to read people. It's that mediumistic state. And in yoga, it's like, pay no attention to the man behind the curtains. You know, just keep focusing on your goal of realization. But in magic and in mediumship and psychic healing, that's what we want to play with. So again, the hypnagogic state is the place where it's like our little workshop. Once you know how to access it, you can do whatever you want with it. And then accessing higher states of consciousness, through our psychic senses, we begin to tap into like the greater self, that there's a little part of us that's part of the bigger thing, and the bigger thing is a part of us as above, so below. So lucid dreaming, we were just talking about that. So we can train ourselves to notice when we're dreaming, and then consciously will the contents to go in the direction that we want. So for example, if you have a reoccurring nightmare, and we can do this with hypnosis as well, but if you learn to lucid dream, and then you train yourself to notice that you're asleep, and you start having that reoccurring nightmare, you can say, and I've done it, oh, I'm dreaming. I don't have to feel bad right now. I think I'm going to feel good. And then I let the dream continue, and it resolves itself, and I don't have the dream anymore. This is kind of a fast, but each one of these topics can be a discussion. So lucid dreaming is an amazing skill to develop, and it all stems from this learning how to utilize this hypnagogic state. Extrasensory perception as well, that's what we were just talking about. So we have our external senses, like you can see, smell, taste, feel a flower, hear a sound, experience things. This is our sensory perception. So, but if there's no object, can we still sense? Well, you can sense without those five physical senses, but it's a different way of perceiving. So we have to train ourselves to look at something or think about something, bring it up in our mind, and then you imagine all the senses that go along with it, and pretty soon it's just as real as if you're really looking at it. And this again is our sixth sense, also referred to as empathy or our intuition. And it arises out of the yoga between the right and left hemispheres. So our right hemisphere kind of has an impression of the situation, and then it shoots it over to the left hemisphere, which does a decisive action. When you have the two together, you kind of get this like eureka moment, like, ah, wow, how, I just understood it without understanding why. That's when you have a union between both hemispheres of your mind. So as we learn to quiet our minds and relax completely, we begin to tune into these subtle energies that lead to extrasensory perception. So, glimpsing the total mind. I love this picture, and as some of you probably know, it's my profile, my picture behind my profile on Facebook. It's just like, yeah, I feel like that all the time. I'm walking around in this reality, but my head's like popping into the other reality. So as I've mentioned, most people lose awareness within the first few minutes of sleep as they enter into the state of sleep. So they lose their awareness in the first few minutes when they enter into the state of sleep. In Yoga Nidra, we experience this transitional phase as the portals of sleep, and so as to preserve the thread of awareness. So we extend this transition state. This enables us to experience the sleeping state with our conscious minds intact. That's lucid dreaming. So there's like all these different ways to get at this state. Through practice, we can transcend the three initial states of awareness and enter into a fourth, uniting state beyond individual consciousness, emerging with the universal consciousness, also known as samadhi, that bliss state, or gnosis. In religious terms, this experience is called liberation or God realization. But for most people, the contents of a sleep and dream are glimpsed only in a haphazard way by the conscious mind through occasional recall of a dream or a vision. But because our conscious is fragmented, we are unable to tap into the vast resources of knowledge within ourselves. Yoga Nidra is a means of accessing this higher state of consciousness, or gnosis, the source of our self-knowledge and inspiration. So it is a technique that we induce conscious dreaming, and as we do that, the vast contents of our own consciousness can be systematically examined, explored, and then utilized. So, handling the experience. So once we get in there and start taking our minds apart in the privacy of our own home, if someone accidentally disturbed you when you're in the middle of this state, it's happened to me. I'm out of my freaking mind. I can't look at them in the eye. I can't even relate to a human being when I'm in a deep meditative state and am examining my ideas. Maybe I'm coming up with a plan or something. I write a lot of policies and procedures. I go into this state of mind to get my ideas. So how do you know if you're crazy or just having a transcendental experience? Well, psychosis, your reality is impaired. So great, you're going into this deep, wonderful trance state like lucid dreaming. But if you can't tell the difference between sitting in this room and being on a cloud with an angel or whatever you're experiencing, that's impaired reality. So in a transcendent state, you kind of witness yourself in these alternate realities, but you can come back. Grandiose delusions. Well, I merge with deities all the time. I become the goddess Kali or Medicine Buddha or Promethea, a comic book character. But I also know when not to do that. So grandiose delusions, self versus self, the little you becoming this other archetypal entity so you can learn how to use aspects and facets of your psyche.
Id versus ego.
Exactly. Thank you. Okay, so you're following. An identity disorder. Like once you take on these God forms, do you remember who you are? Like, I'm here, and when I'm here, I call myself Steele. But when I go into other realities, I have other names because it helps me identify with how I want to relate to a particular situation. I do it by choice. But if you get stuck in your various identities and you can't come back to the one that's attached to this reality, then you have a problem. But you're doing exactly the same things in Yoga Nidra, in this hypnagogic state. So it's just something to think about. Once you start unpacking your brain, you can get kind of messy. So it's like, the mind is like driving a car. If you don't know how to handle it, you're going to get in an accident. But if you're a good driver, it takes you wherever you want to go. So I consider madness to be a transcendental experience which an individual has not been able to handle. So many, if not all, of the truly intuitive, creative discoveries of things in science and whatnot come from this state of gnosis. And again, I mentioned Einstein and Bohr. Van Gogh says that pictures came to him as if in a dream. Mozart composed a whole symphony while dozing in the back of a carriage. So dozing, right? That's the hypnagogic state. So all of these people allow themselves to become quiet, deeply relaxed, enough for the images of their subconscious mind to manifest as solutions to whatever it is they're focused on. Our mind is amazing when we learn how to drive it. So the deeper layers of the mind contain solutions to all our problems, but we must be able to allow ourselves to be quiet and detach from whatever comes up. So that's the trick, and that's what we work on in Yoga Nidra. So just as we possess sensory awareness of the physical body, it is also possible to develop awareness of the mental, psychic, and unconscious bodies. This is a process of expansion of awareness upon which you embark in Yoga Nidra. So we dive into our own consciousness, and our awareness passes through these different levels. From the physical to the mental awareness, we enter the realms of sleep and unconscious and the subconscious mind, but the thread of awareness remains intact and the senses are withdrawn except for hearing. This is the place where the consciousness becomes introverted and we have an awareness of mental manifestations, dreams, and visions. Then we have the transition from the mental into the psychic awareness, which brings awareness to the entire astral and psychic dimension. At this level, the practitioner becomes receptive to more subtle forms of stimuli. That's the ESP range there. And in this dimension, psychic phenomena, astral projection, and lucid dreaming take place. Then there's the final descent from the psychic into the homogeneous awareness. And this is the place where the unconscious mind taps into the fundamental rhythm of the superconscious universe beyond all restrictions of space, time, and individual personality. So it's like we're navigating. We can do this with intention. So this is the ultimate experience of Yoga Nidra, the illumination of the conscious mind to reveal the superconscious state. So it's getting into that dark night of the soul and then looking for the light. And that's just kind of how I sum it up when I have this experience. So, doorway to bliss. So Yoga Nidra is a technique which can be used to enter the bliss state. And by practicing Raja Yoga techniques, particularly the higher psychic stages, we become aware of the subconscious and unconscious mind. And by maintaining this awareness, we can lucidly explore, lucid dreaming, the inner regions of the mind. So ultimately, we can enter into the state of superconsciousness, which is the bliss state. So, Yoga Nidra is a simplified form of Raja Yoga. Are you guys pretty familiar with Raja Yoga? I don't want to grind it. So, Yoga Nidra, the first stage relates to postures, asana. The second stage where we make our intention, called sankalpa, that's like the things you shouldn't do and the things you should do. So that's the resolve corresponds to that. Breath awareness corresponds to pranayama, breathing, and rotation of consciousness and evoking opposite sensations is pratyahara, the withdrawal of senses. And then we do visualization, which is dharana, which is concentration, jhana, which is meditation, and that ultimately leads to kind of an awakening, samadhi. So, here's the outline of the practice. So, you kind of move around a little bit, like when we're done here, I'll have everybody go to the bathroom, have a glass of water, kind of get physical. And then you lay down in Shavasana, the dead man's pose. Do some mental exercises. You set your intention. Do the rotation of consciousness. And then you focus on the breathing for 5 or 6 minutes. Then you do opposite feelings and sensations, hot and cold, light and heavy, to intentionally manifest a feeling without it being invoked in you. And then you slowly bring yourself out of the state and back to this reality. So sowing the seeds of change, this is our intention. So the purpose of setting an intention is to make a determination and focus your mind. And so when you're in this subconscious state, it's like a hypnotic suggestion, but you make it yourself. So the intention that you make at the beginning of the practice is like sowing a seed, and then you do it again at the end of the practice, and that's like irrigating the seed. So some examples of intentions you might set in Yoga Nidra are, I awaken my psychic or magical potential. I'm a positive force of strength and well-being for myself and others. That's my personal one. I'm successful in all that I undertake. You can basically do anything you want, but the more you do it with the same intention, it actually starts to manifest in your life. So imagery as a catalyst. So we experience a lot of images in Yoga Nidra to remove the emotion that's attached to something that's just a thing. It has no intention, it has no personality. So we go through a series of images in Yoga Nidra to break the attachment of the union of a sensitizing situation like a cross. Like if I look at a cross, I don't have a strong aversion to Christianity, so I just look at a cross. But if other people think of a cross, all this baggage comes up, and that's part of self-analysis, and part of what we do as magicians is to get to know ourselves so we can control our mind and not let external influences control us. So this is what I was talking about, direct and abstract association. Say the image of a tree comes up. I'm just thinking about a tree. But if you fell out of a tree as a young child, when the image of a tree comes up, you're going to have all these painful memories, and you're going to get yourself agitated and upset. So we learn to look at these things with the attitude of a witness, kind of like when you're in that nice, comfortable state of Yoga Nidra, the hypnagogic state, you can look at things that happened in your life with detached awareness, like it's not you. And then you're not involved in protecting yourself or running away from things. You get to see it for what it really is. And ultimately, once you do these things a few times and develop your mind, you move into the state of superconsciousness. And that was something that was always considered mystical and religious, but now it's recognized as a definite physiological reality. Our superconsciousness it's part of our brain. So modern psychologists such as Carl Jung have sought to define the state as merging with the collective unconscious. Research in parapsychology and psi phenomenon is providing experimental evidence that a single underlying matrix of consciousness does in fact exist and has been termed the universal mind. It's like the holographic universe, the holographic brain. Everywhere you look, it's like the unmanifested potential. As soon as you focus on something, the quantum field collapses and you're in that. And then you shift your attention to someplace else, the quantum field collapses and you're in it. But it's all where you're pointing your attention. But it's all connected. So the universal mind or subconscious mind is progressively realized as barriers separating the normal states of awareness are broken down by practices such as Yoga Nidra and meditation. The mysterious unconscious mind of the individual then becomes illuminated, revealing the entire superconscious dimension. This process of illumination of the total mind is considered to be the true meaning of self-realization or gnosis. And now it's your turn. So, you guys ready to experience Yoga Nidra? Love is a law, love under will. So, at this point, I'm going to turn this off. And I'm going to invite you all to stretch, go pee, have a little drink, and then I'm going to do about a 25-minute Yoga Nidra guided meditation.
Please get ready for the practice of Yoga Nidra. Lie down in Shavasana, the dead man's pose, and make yourself as comfortable as possible. Keep your feet slightly apart and let them flop a little bit sideways. Your arms slightly away from the body with the palms of your hands turned upwards. Adjust your blanket, your clothing, and your position so that you can practice Yoga Nidra without moving and without any physical discomfort. Please close your eyes now and keep them closed. The practice of Yoga Nidra is the act of hearing and the act of feeling. These are the only important factors. In Yoga Nidra, you function on the level of awareness, plus the level of listening. In dreams, you have no control. In Yoga Nidra, you are the creator of the dream. Say to yourself mentally, I will not sleep. I shall only listen to the voice. Repeat to yourself, I will not sleep. Give yourself some time to become calm and steady. And take a deep breath, and as you breathe in, feel calmness spreading throughout the body. As you are breathing out, say to yourself mentally, relax. Become aware of sounds in the distance. Become aware of the most distant sounds that you can hear. Let your sense of hearing operate like a radar beam, searching out distant sounds and following them for a little while. Move your attention from sound to sound, without attempting to identify the source. Gradually bring your attention to closer sounds, to sounds outside this building, and then to sounds inside this building. Now develop your awareness of this room. Without opening your eyes, visualize the four walls, the ceiling, and the floor, your body lying on the floor. See your body lying on the floor. Become aware of the existence of your physical body lying on the floor. Total awareness of your body lying in perfect stillness. Your body is lying on the floor. Develop your awareness of all of the physical meeting points between your body and the floor. Become aware of the natural breath. Become aware of the deep, natural, spontaneous breath. Do not concentrate, for this will interfere with the natural process. Keep on listening to me and know that you are breathing. The practice of Yoga Nidra begins now. Say mentally to yourself, I am going to practice Yoga Nidra. I will not sleep. I am going to practice Yoga Nidra. Intention. This is the time to make your intention. A very simple intention. Please state your intention clearly and with feeling and awareness 3 times now. Rotation of consciousness. Awareness of different parts of the body. As quickly as possible, The mind moves from point to point. Right hand thumb, second finger, third finger, fourth finger, fifth finger, palm of the hand, back of the hand, wrist, lower arm, elbow, upper arm, shoulder, armpit, side, waist, hip, right thigh, kneecap, calf muscle, ankle, heel, sole, top of the right foot, right big toe, second toe, third toe, fourth toe, fifth toe, left hand thumb, second finger, third finger, fourth finger, fifth finger, palm of the hand, back of the hand, wrist, lower arm, elbow, upper arm, shoulder, armpit, side, waist, hip, left thigh, kneecap, calf muscle, ankle, heel, sole, top of the left foot, left big toe, second toe, third toe, fourth toe, fifth toe. Now go to the top of the head, forehead, right eyebrow, left eyebrow, the space between the eyebrows, right eyelid, left eyelid, right eye, left eye, right ear, left ear, right nostril, left nostril, right cheek, left cheek, upper lip, lower lip, chin, jaw, throat, right collarbone, left collarbone, right chest, left chest, middle of the chest, navel, upper abdomen, lower abdomen, right groin, left groin, right thigh, left thigh, right knee, left knee, right ankle, left ankle, right toes, left toes. Now go to the back. Right toes, left toes, right sole, left sole, right heel, left heel, right ankle, left ankle, right calf muscle, left calf muscle, back of the right knee, back of the left knee, back of the right thigh, back of the left thigh, right buttock, left buttock, right hip, left hip, the whole spine, right shoulder blade, left shoulder blade, back of the neck, back of the head, top of the head. Now the major parts of the body, the whole of the right leg, the whole of the left leg, both legs together, the whole of the right arm, the whole of the left arm, both arms together, the whole of the head together, the whole of the back together, the whole of the front together, the whole body, the whole body, the whole body. Visualize the whole body as you say it. Intensify your awareness. Concentrate on the body lying on the floor, your body lying on the floor, and become aware of the meeting points between the body and the floor. Head floor, shoulders floor, arms floor, back floor, buttocks floor, thighs floor, calves floor, heels floor, the whole body and the floor. Please do not sleep. Total awareness. No sleeping. No movement. Your body is lying on the floor. See your body lying perfectly still on the floor in this room. Visualize this image in your mind. Switch your attention to the eyelids. Feel the narrow line of the meeting points between the upper and lower eyelids. Feel the sharp points where they meet. Intensify your awareness between the eyelids. And then the lips. Center your attention on the line between the lips, that space between the lips. From the lips we go to the breath. Draw your attention to the natural ingoing and outgoing breath. Feel the breath moving along the passage between the navel and the throat. On inhalation, it rises from navel to throat. On exhalation, it descends from the throat to the navel. Be completely aware of the respiration, navel to throat, throat to navel. Do not try and force the breath, just awareness. Maintain your awareness and at the same time start counting your breaths, backwards as follows. I am breathing in 54. I am breathing out 54. I am breathing in 53. I am breathing out 53. I am breathing in 52. I am breathing out 52. And so on, from 54 to 1. Count to yourself mentally as you follow the rise and fall of your breath from navel to throat and back again. Total awareness of breathing and counting. The breathing is slow and relaxed. Please continue counting. Awareness of sensations. Awaken the feeling of heaviness in the body, the feeling of heaviness. Become aware of heaviness in every single part of the body. You are feeling so heavy that you are sinking into the floor. Awareness of heaviness, awareness of heaviness. Now awaken the feeling of lightness. Awaken the feeling of lightness. A sensation of lightness and weightlessness in all parts of the body. Your body feels so light that it seems to be floating away from the floor. Awareness of lightness. Awaken the experience of cold. Awaken the experience of bitter cold in the body. Imagine you are walking on a cold floor in winter. Your feet feel very cold, and you feel cold all over. Awareness of coldness. Awareness of coldness. Now awaken the sensation of heat. Awaken the experience of heat. The whole body is hot. The whole body is hot. You feel hot all over. Recollect the feeling of heat in the summer when you are out in the sun with no shade. Heat all over the body, and heat all around the body. Awareness of heat. Awaken the experience of pain. Concentrate and try and remember the experience of pain. Any pain you have experienced in your life, mental or physical, recollect the feeling of pain. Now recollect the feeling of pleasure, any kind of pleasure, physical or mental. Recollect this feeling and relive it, make it vivid, awakening the feeling of pleasure. Check that you are awake. Are you drowsy or sleepy? Make sure that you are not sleeping. Say to yourself, I am awake. Withdraw your mind and concentrate on the space in front of your closed eyes, the space we call Chitakasha. Imagine before you a transparent screen through which you can see infinite space, a space that extends as far as the eye can see. Concentrate on this dark space and become aware of any phenomena that manifests within it. Whatever you see is the manifesting state of your mind. Continue your awareness of the space, but do not become involved. Practice detached awareness only. Imagine yourself in a park in the early morning. The sun has not risen, and the park is deserted except for yourself. It's a beautiful park, calm, peaceful. Walk across the springy grass. Listen to the birds whistle and call as they welcome the new day. There are gardens of flowers, roses, yellow, pink, red, purple. Smell their fragrance and see the early morning dewdrops on their petals. Nearby the rose garden is a fish pond. Goldfish swim in and out and amongst the water lilies. See their graceful movements. You walk between the trees, beautiful trees, bare trees and trees with leaves, wide spreading trees and tall stately trees. There is a clearing between the trees, and in this clearing there's a small temple with an aura of light around it. Go to the door. It is cool and dim inside. Inside on the walls there are pictures of great saints. You sit down on the floor, close your eyes, and become still. A sense of deep peace and harmony envelops you as the sounds outside fade far into the distance. Continue your awareness of meditation inside the temple. Stay there for some time until peace and harmony pervade. Now bring your awareness back to Chitakasha. Bring your awareness to the dark space you see in front of your closed eyes. Watch the darkness that you see before you very carefully, with detachment. Do not become involved. Rest your mind in this warm and friendly darkness. If any subtle phenomenon manifests, for example, colors or patterns, simply take note of this and continue with your awareness. If thoughts occur, let them come and go, but continue watching the dark space. Continue with this detached awareness. Imagine that you are lying on the ceiling, and you see below you your body lying in Shavasana on the floor, practicing Yoga Nidra beside other people. Now see your body slowly stand up and tiptoe to the door. Quietly open it and go outside, closing the door softly behind you. See your body walking outside this building. See the familiar things around you. There is no sense of effort, only lightness. You meet some people that you know. See them, but they can't see you. Watch them as they walk past. Perhaps they are making their usual conversation. Suddenly you find that your body is floating over the sea. Become aware of this. See the dark blue sea glistening below. Across its surface a ship is steaming. Your body floats like a cloud. Wherever the wind blows the clouds, your body is also blown. Wisps of clouds brush past your face. Below you, sunlight reflects off a bank of white cloud. Above you, puffs of cloud scurry across a blue sky. Now your body is lifted by currents of air and carried over the land. On the ground you see below you are farmhouses, carefully laid out fields, thick forests, winding rivers that reflect the sun. Pause a moment and look closely at yourself. Your body is totally relaxed, and on your face is an expression of peace and calm. See your body suddenly immersed in color as it passes through a rainbow. Feel yourself washed and purified by subtle colors: yellow, green, blue, violet, red, orange, and golden yellow. Feel the colors penetrating your whole body, nourishing and invigorating you at some very deep level. Then, slowly make your return. See your body return to the outside of this building. See again the familiar objects. Quietly open the door, walk inside and close it after you. You lie back down on the floor, taking care not to disturb the other people. Your body rests again in Shavasana. Intention. Now is the time to say your intention, your sankalpa. Repeat the same intention you made at the beginning of the practice, in the same words and with the same attitude. Repeat your intention with complete feeling and emphasis 3 times now. Become aware of your breathing. Become aware of your natural breathing. Awareness of breathing and awareness of relaxation. Develop awareness of your physical existence. Become aware of your arms and your legs and your body lying stretched out on the floor. Become aware of the meeting points between your body and the floor. Develop awareness of the room, the walls, the ceiling, noises in the room and noises outside. Take your mind out, become completely external. Lie quietly for a few moments and keep your eyes closed. Start moving your body and stretching yourself. Please take your time. There is no hurry. When you are sure that you are wide awake, sit up slowly and open your eyes. The practice of Yoga Nidra is now complete. Hare Om Tat Sat.